everyone, it's Matt. So today I want to talk about Dogecoin. So no matter what social media platform you're on, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or Reddit, you're hearing about Dogecoin. And then you've got guys like me who are trying to understand, well, what the heck exactly is Dogecoin? And more importantly, is it in fact investable? So there you have me, like typical everybody else, going on Google and typing in, well, what is Dogecoin? And Google basically spit out a whole host of results to kind of like explain to me, well, what this thing actually is. And most of it was fairly technical in nature. But every now and then I would come across a nugget which would sort of Englishize this to me. I took a lot of that content together, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. I'm basically going to split this video out into 6 parts. The first thing I'll talk about, well, Wtf is Dogecoin. Then I'll talk about what's unique about Dogecoin. Then I'll talk about what is the problem with Dogecoin. What's propping up the price of Dogecoin? Is Dogecoin actually investable? And if it is investable, how do you go about buying Dogecoin? So let's get into it. So the first question is, well, what is Dogecoin? When the creators of Dogecoin were actually making this, they did it as a form of a joke. And that kind of like makes sense now because it is the most meme cryptocurrency that's out there. So what I thought I would do in this video is on the right-hand side or the left-hand side here, I'm basically going to be scrolling through some of the memes that I came across. And you as a viewer, if you can timestamp it in the comments below of which one's your favorite meme, that'll be very helpful. Also, while you're down there, also like and subscribe to the channel as well. So not only was it created as a joke, it's basically a fork, okay? So Dogecoin is a fork of the now defunct luckycoin, which is also a fork of litecoin, which is a fork of Bitcoin, okay? So now the natural question is going to be, well, what in the world is a fork? You promised that this was going to be easy, and now you're already starting to throw terminology like that into it. So the simplest way to think about a fork is this, okay? You have your main track, okay? Your main track, which is Bitcoin, okay, and it's got a bunch of code associated with this, computer code, if you will. And then you've got all these tracks that come out of it, okay? Anytime you make a modification to this original code, right, and you create a slightly different code base with some slightly different characteristics or features, it's essentially a fork. Okay, so you have the big train going here, which is Bitcoin. You've got a fork that's coming out of that, which is Litecoin. Okay, now you look at this particular fork, and then you make another fork out of it, right? And that is Luckycoin. And then you make another fork out of that Luckycoin, which is now Dogecoin. And now Luckycoin is actually defunct. Litecoin is very, very popular, and obviously everybody knows about Bitcoin. So that's the easiest way to think about Dogecoin. So the next question is basically, well, what is so unique about Dogecoin? And the fact of the matter is simple. There's nothing all that unique about Dogecoin. The biggest difference between Dogecoin and something such as Bitcoin is basically that Dogecoin is an inflationary tool, while Bitcoin is a deflationary tool. So let me talk about that slightly in this here, okay? So when you think about Bitcoin, everyone is sort of familiar that there's a finite amount of Bitcoin. There's 21 million Bitcoin that you can basically have. But when it comes to something like Dogecoin, is you can have an infinite amount of Dogecoin, okay? So when you can have something like an infinite amount of Dogecoin, it starts taking a very similar characteristic of money, okay? So what I mean by that is like you have the Fed chair, right? So the Fed can basically continue to print out money as long as they want to resolve any type of issue that they potentially have, like the environment that we are in. People are running to Bitcoin in an environment such as this because they're concerned when you have the Fed printing out all this money, you're going to come across this situation where the value of the dollar basically gets eroded, and you want something like cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular because there's a finite amount of it. You can't just keep pumping more and more of it out, and it's basically going to be an inflationary hedge, or at least that's the thesis anyway. But when you have something like Dogecoin with no limit, it's got a very similar characteristic as dollar or money. The next thing that you need to know is this world of these miners, okay? So what happens is whenever you have a cryptocurrency type of transaction, what happens there is a verification protocol to assess the legitimacy of that particular transaction, okay? There's basically these computers that solve problems in terms of figuring out whether the transaction is essentially verified. Whenever they do a verification of a particular transaction, they're awarded with more Bitcoin, or they're awarded, in this case, with more Dogecoin. Now, the problem is this, okay? When they're awarded with more Dogecoin, they're awarded like 10,000 Dogecoin for every time they're basically able to solve one of these equations, okay? And they're awarded one of these 10,000 Dogecoin basically every minute. So every minute they're able to verify a transaction. So it just goes to show how simpler it is from a Dogecoin perspective to basically resolve some of these problems or these equations. But when you have something like Bitcoin on the other hand, right, you're basically awarded like 1 or 10 Bitcoin every like 10 minutes. Okay, so there's a significant amount of difference in terms of the amount of supply that you can have of Dogecoin relative to the amount of Bitcoin that you can have in the system. So what is the problem with something like Dogecoin? The supply of Dogecoin is significant. The demand for Dogecoin is not as much. It is not as popular of a cryptocurrency as is something like Bitcoin. Okay, everyone is buying Bitcoin. Bitcoin is trading at almost $40,000 a Bitcoin, right? But Dogecoin is basically it's like a nickel, right? So there is a significant amount of difference because what's happening is there is less demand for Dogecoin, largely because it's even harder to buy Dogecoin. And secondly, it's because how much Dogecoin these miners can basically get every time they're essentially able to solve one of these equations. Okay, but there's a significant amount of difference between the amount of supply that is there for Dogecoin relative to the amount of demand that is also there for Dogecoin. Okay, and that is the biggest problem with it, because when you have this demand supply imbalance, it basically pushes the price of a particular currency down. So then the question always is, well, what's propping up the price of Dogecoin? Because it seems to be going up every single day. Well, the reasons are kind of like simple, okay? It's nothing fundamental. It's all driven by social media, okay? You've got some big influencers out there like Elon Musk who are tweeting about Dogecoin almost every other day. And those types of things, they definitely create traction when they have a bunch of followers who essentially are all going in and buying Dogecoin. Now, with all of that said, there are some of these fundamental underlying aspects of Dogecoin as well, i.e. its similarity to money. And some people have this tendency of thinking, well, due to that similarity with money, maybe someday it could become as liquid of a currency or as easily transferable as something such as money. The next question is, well, is this dang thing actually investable? Okay, and the short answer to something like that is I'd say yes. It is investable, okay? What you're having now is more and more platforms allowing you to buy Dogecoin. And when you have something like that, that demand supply imbalance that I was basically referring to should hopefully get hedged quite a bit, okay? So when you have something like that, it's going to drive up the price of Dogecoin a bit, okay? But no, there isn't a significant technology or any other difference between, say, a Dogecoin and, Bitcoin or Litecoin or any of the other currencies beyond that. So how do you go about buying Dogecoin? Okay, so the easiest way to go about buying Dogecoin is directly through like Binance or Kraken, right? They're relatively simple in terms of how you go about buying this, or you can go directly off an exchange such as VCC or Parabo or Huobi, who will all allow you to buy this particular cryptocurrency as well. Now, this whole investable component of this is really my own opinion, okay? It's not meant to be investment advice, so definitely think about this whole thing before you decide to make a particular position or move or trade on this particular cryptocurrency. If you enjoyed the contents of this, definitely subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and I will see you soon.